Just let me know. All right. Gonna get started in a couple minutes or less than a minute. Waiting for everybody to join. We are now going live. Our Zoom webinar is going live, and we are going live on YouTube. Thanks for joining, everyone. We're gonna go ahead and get started and real soon. All right. All right, Jen, you want to put me on screen and we'll get started. All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to our King Tides live stream. We're so excited to have you here with us today. My name is Chrissy Moreno, and I am the Sea Level Rise Program Coordinator for California State Parks. I'm so excited to be hosting today our live stream. This is our 8th annual live stream in collaboration with California Coastal Commission. And I am live here from San Alejo State Beach. And I'm so excited to share these king tides that are happening right now with you. I'm here at the lifeguard headquarters at San Alejo State Beach, where we have this bird's eye view. So this is where the lifeguards work. And this is their public safety operation. And they get this bird's eye view of the whole park and campground. And the king tides are happening. And we're going to talk all about that today. We're going to be learning about king tides and how they help us look into the future. That's right. You are going to be time traveling scientists today. And we're going to be visiting 10 different parks along the coast. Here's where we're going today. We're going to be visiting Torrey Pine State Beach down in San Diego. That's where I am at San Alejo State Beach. I'm also down in San Diego. And then we're heading up the coast. We're floating up the coast. So everybody needs to put their flippers on and their snorkels because we're floating up the coast today. We're going to be hitting Orange County and Santa Barbara, Morro Bay, the Central Coast, all the way up to Northern California to McCarraker State Park. We're going to be learning today about what king tides are, how king tides help us look into the future, how sea level rise is affecting our coastline, what scientists are doing to study this coastline, and how you can be community scientists and contribute to that's the science project we're going to talk about later. So let's bring everybody up on screen today. We have these 10 amazing parks that we're going to be visiting today. So let's see everybody. Wave hello. We have amazing interpreters all the way up the coast that are going to be talking to us about what's special about their park. They're going to be sharing with us some of the impacts from the king tides and what makes their park special. So before we get started, I know you're probably ready to start exploring and start learning all about these king tides. And I want you to stay tuned to the end of the broadcast because we have a special scientist spotlight where we're going to be looking at what scientists are doing to study our coast. So make sure you stay tuned for our scientist spotlight at the end. Now, I know you're ready to start floating up the coast. We are going to learn a little bit more first about what tides are and what king tides are. So let's bring our first slide on screen, and you may hear us talking to Jen in the background. Jen Verlanger is our ports program coordinator, and she's our amazing producer behind the scenes helping us today. So you might hear us say Jen, that's who we're talking to. Okay, so let's learn about what tides are. Tides are the rise and fall of sea level resulting from the gravitational pull from the sun and the moon. So did you know that the sun and the moon have this really strong gravitational pull on Earth? Since water is fluid, this gravitational pull can move water, especially large bodies of water such as our global ocean. This pull of gravity causes the water to be pulled in one direction or the other. And you can see here in this image, when the sun and the moon are lined up, or the moon is moving around the
Okay, everyone, excuse the disruption. I think we lost our host here for a moment. Let's give Chrissy a moment to reconnect, hopefully. There we go.
Sorry about that. All right. Everybody hear me okay? Somehow got kicked out of the Zoom for a minute, but I'm back. Okay. So let's think about some of the ways that tides may have helped humans for thousands of years. Well, humans observed the ocean and they actually watched for patterns in the ocean. And humans use tides for food, travel, and recreation. So let's go to the next slide and let's look at a tide calendar. So this is a tide calendar. This is every day there are 2 high tides and 2 low tides along our coast. And today we have a really extremely high tide, almost a 7-foot high tide, and we have an extremely low tide, which is almost -2 feet at 1.75 feet low tide. So every day there's 2 high tides and 2 low tides. I want you to look at this calendar, and what do you notice? What does this remind you of? Sometimes people say that it looks like waves going up and down. Some people have told me that it looks like a roller coaster. Well, today we're definitely on a roller coaster. We're going extremely high with our tide and we're going extremely low in our tides. And that's because today it's a king tide. Now, what are king tides, you might be wondering? Let's go to the next slide and take a look at this graphic. You can see that the moon is orbiting the Earth and the Earth is orbiting the sun. When the sun, the moon, and the Earth are all in alignment, and it's a new moon or a full moon, which tonight is a new moon, we have these king tides. And you can see these tidal shifts or these tidal bulges happening. Now watch when everything is lined up, the sun, the moon, and the Earth. See how that tidal bulge gets bigger? That's when we're having a king tide. Now, they're the largest tides of the year, and the moon and the sun are actually closer to Earth this time of year too. So why are king tides special? Why are we watching the king tides along our coast? I want you to think about that for a second. Why would we be watching the king tides happening along our coast? I'm going to shift over here for a minute so you can kind of see the coastline here. These king tides are actually going all the way up to our rocks here and our cliffs and our beaches. So why would we be watching these king tides happening? Well, king tides give us a glimpse into the future. Remember how I said we're going to be time traveling scientists today? Because of global climate change and rising sea levels, the king tides of today are the normal high tides of tomorrow. And we can use this to plan along our coast in the future because we can see where these tides are coming up onto our beaches and how they're affecting our beaches. We know climate change is causing the levels of the ocean to slowly rise. The sea level we're experiencing now and will experience in the future is caused by burning fossil fuels like coal, oil, and gas. When we burn fossil fuels, we release carbon dioxide into our atmosphere. This acts like a blanket and it's trapping in heat that would otherwise escape. So you can see the sun, the heat is coming down from the sun. Some of that heat goes back up into space, but some of it gets trapped. And those greenhouse gases and that carbon dioxide actually traps that heat more and acts like this blanket, and it thickens our blanket around our earth, and it heats our earth, air, and ocean. When our oceans are warmed, then glaciers and ice sheets are melting into the ocean, and that's causing the sea levels to rise. More water coming off the ice into the ocean causes it to go up. Also, water takes up more space when it warms. So if we're warming the planet and our ocean, we're increasing the volume of the ocean, causing it to rise as well. So the amount of sea level rise we experience will depend on how quickly we stop burning fossil fuels. Now, king tides are not caused by sea level rise. They're naturally occurring, but they allow us to experience what higher sea level will look like. So you can see in this picture here, this is an access point to one of our beaches in San Diego. And this is from the last king tide last month that we had occurring along our coast. And you can see it's being impacted. The water's going up all the way to that access point, to that staircase. We can't get down on our beaches. This is what higher sea level is going to look like with 1 to 2 feet of sea level rise. This is what the future of our coast is looking like. So king tides are the highest tides of the year, about 1 or 2 feet higher than average high tides. And that's what sea level is expected to rise in the next few decades, 1 to 2 feet. So king tides today will help us responsibly plan for sea level rise in the future. Okay, now we know more about king tides and sea level rise. Let's talk to some of our amazing park interpreters along our coast, and let's learn more about how king tides are impacting their park. First, we're gonna go down on the beach from where I'm at. So I'm up here on the lifeguard tower at San Alejo State Beach, and we have Anita down on the beach, and she's gonna tell us more about what this park looks like. Hi, Anita. How you doing down there? Thanks for joining us.
Hi. You're welcome. Can you hear me all right?
We can hear you great, and we can see the beach behind you. We can see that lagoon. Go ahead and take it away and tell us about the park.
Okay, well, good morning, everybody. My name's Anita. I'm an interpreter here at San Alejo State Beach Campground. And we're in a very special place here. This is part of a marine protected area. And the lagoon, the San Alejo Lagoon, drains out into the open ocean. So this is the last part of our watershed here. And being that it's very high tide right now, you can see the water entering the lagoon, which brings fresh salt water and nutrients for the animals to live and flourish in the opening of the lagoon. So, Chrissy, you were talking about a roller coaster on your tide chart. So what we've done here is we've made a time-lapse video to share with everybody so you can see that roller coaster that Chrissy was talking about. You're going to see the extremes. You're going to see a very, very low tide, and you're going to see a very, very high tide. Okay, well, I hope you liked that video. So during the last few storms that we've had around January 11th, we had really high waves, okay? Our waves were 6 feet plus, and that generated a lot of energy that was landing here on our beaches. So what happened with that, it took lots of sand and lots of rocks and pushed it up into that lagoon mouth. So I want to show you an aerial view. You're going to see the Coast Highway, and if you look behind the Coast Highway bridge, you're going to see water in the background and sand before the bridge. So all that wave energy clogged the lagoon opening, and that's not a good thing. That means we have to take measures to do an emergency dredging to reopen that mouth and let the water flow in and out. So here's an aerial view for you. There you go. Okay, so that first bridge you see, that's the Coast Highway 1. And if you look just to the back side of that, you'll see a little water that's trapped, kind of like in a little river area. And then if you look in front of the bridge, it's all sand. And boys and girls, I could barely walk under that bridge. There was so much sand pushed under there. It wasn't even hardly as tall as I am. So then the next storm came along, added lots and lots of water to our watershed. All that water drained from our local mountains, filled our lagoon area, and then the movement of that water helped to push that sand out of the lagoon mouth, and it opened the mouth. So check out this next picture. Okay, that's what it looks like when I couldn't walk under the bridge. And then that next storm that came along helped to push that sand out. And there we go. Now the water from the lagoon is able to flow back out here to the open ocean. All right, now these storms also brought a lot of energy to our beach right across from the lagoon. That is Cardiff State Beach. And we have a parking lot there for visitors to come in and be able to use that beach. But all this wave energy and high tide has been able to get up into that parking lot, and it's starting to destroy it. So let's take a look at that first picture of Cardiff parking lot. Okay, there you go. You can see the waves are actually washing up into the parking lot there. And that gate you see in the front, that gate is big and it opens both directions, okay? So you take a look and notice the red curb, okay? And now, take a look at our next picture. Okay, what's happened? The red curb is gone. We can't even close the gate now. The pole that the gate attached to is gone. And we have had all of the parking lot asphalt kind of broken apart. So our crews will have to get in there today and try to scoop all that asphalt away and make that parking lot safe. So it's a lot of money and a lot of work. So these king tides can be fascinating, but they can also do a lot of damage along our coastline. Well, Chrissy,
Wow.
I'd like to share with you what we've done to mitigate some of these high tides from the damage we received last year. Now, last year where I was standing, we had 2 palm trees and a few other trees and a fence line. And just since last year, you'll see all these rocks, and these large rocks, boys and girls, these are called rip rap. And it's one way that we can mitigate damage from these high tides and large storms. So the fence has totally been gone. We had to put more riprap in all the way down towards where Chrissy is in the main tower. And we've also lost our precious trees. So Chrissy, this has been a lot for us just in the last year.
Yeah, I've seen a big difference even from last month when I was there with the Scripps scientists, and we were down at that parking lot when it was closed because all those cobblestones and sand were in that parking lot. And now I can't believe it's being destroyed. Like the asphalt's just going away. And that's such
Yeah,
a
we're
popular beach for so many people come to that beach every year. Surfers love this beach, and a lot of surfers use that parking lot. And I know they're going to be just devastated that we're losing it. So thanks for sharing, Anita, your park with us. It's great to see you. It looks beautiful there. We are going to keep floating along the coast. And we're going to first float a little south of here to Torrey Pine State Beach. I think I can almost see Laura down there at Torrey Pine State Beach. Hi, Laura. How are you today?
Good.
King
How are you
Tide.
doing? It's starting to
Good.
sprinkle on us actually while the king
Oh,
tides
wow.
are happening.
Oh,
But
wow.
hello. My name is Laura. I'm at Torrey Pine State Natural Reserve and State Beach, as you can see behind me. The clouds are rolling in, so it got dark all of a sudden, but we are still here. And in addition to our hiking trails at the top of the cliffs, we also have a lovely beach and access to over 4.5 miles of beach from our location. And with that in mind, a lot of people like to come here for recreation, and that includes hiking and swimming and surfing. Maybe not today though, as well as walking and sometimes even fishing as well. So you'll see across the 10 different parks, different cultural, natural, and recreational resources that we have to offer to our visitors. So with over 3 million visitors a year, we do keep a close eye on how climate and weather events like king tides affects our recreation and beach access as one of the major aspects of our location. So if we can actually go to the first video, Jennifer, this will show the peak high tides of January and how far they came up onto our beach. So you'll see in this video here at the bottom of one of our most popular trails, the beach trail, the tide comes all the way up to the stairs, throwing countless cobblestones that covers half the steps. There's no beach access at all at this time of day. Whereas low tide, negative 1.7 feet, there's lots of beach to walk and explore without having that issue of being swept up by the waves. And we have another video after this one that also again shows beach access, this time closer to our parking lot at this location that I'm filming from today. And even more intensely last month, we had the king tides and storm surges at the same time. So you can see the tide came all the way past the sign, all the way to the bottom of the cliffs, buffeting our sandstone right next to our beach. Now, in comparison, again, low tide, which happened last month during sunset, left so much beach to walk and explore. So coming to Southern California beaches like Torrey Pines, it's very important to be mindful of the time of day so that you actually have beach to explore. And it's not just the waves that you have to be cautious of during king tides and high tides in general, but also too, you have to be aware of the cliffs and the risks that they pose for your visitation. So if Jennifer, we can go to the next photo. We have a close-up of this sign you can see behind me, which cautions our beachgoers to be wary of the cliffs and falling rocks that do sometimes come down as well. So our cliffs, also known as bluffs, are made out of sandstone, and they erode from forces such as wind, rain, and waves that happen on a regular basis. With something like king tides that brings our high tides even further up, buffeting our cliffs, this increases the vulnerability of these bluffs, and they do fail and erode. And in this photo, you can see a very recent bluff collapse from January where huge sections, huge boulders of our cliffs fell down onto the beach. So not only, again, do you have to be cautious of the waves, but also the cliffs when visiting a beach like Torrey Pines. So check the weather and check the tides beforehand, because in this image, you'll see we recommend a bare minimum of 20 feet between you and the cliff so that you're not under there in case it's in the middle of a cliff collapse. So if we can go to the last image, Jennifer. Thank you so much. So during peak high tide and king tide season, like we're experiencing now and last month during winter time, sometimes it's not just the normal rules of no dogs and no bikes in this section of our beach, but also to no foot traffic either for safety, right? So thank you for visiting us at Torrey Pines, and we'll turn this back over to Christy and Jennifer.
Thank you, Laura. Thanks for showing us your park. And yes, I think it's so important to let people know that we need to keep that safe distance away from the cliffs and the bluffs. All right, you probably need to get out of the rain now. Bye, Laura. Thanks for joining us. We're going to keep floating up the coast. Now, I hope you have your flippers on and your snorkels because we're headed up to Orange County where it looks bright and sunny. There are a couple clouds in the sky, but we're going to visit Alex today up at Crystal Cove. Hi, Alex.
Hi, everybody. Hi, everyone. Welcome to beautiful Crystal Cove State Park down here in Southern California in Orange County. My name is Alex. This is a California state park, and we're in a very special place today because we're in a marine protected area, or MPA. So the 3.2 miles of coastline here are marine protected area protecting habitats like kelp forests, tide pools, sandy shore bottoms, rocky reefs. Lots of fun things to do here at Crystal Cove State Park. You can go snorkeling, swimming, surfing. We also have 2,400 acres of backcountry wilderness. And today we are celebrating king tides. So king tides are the most extreme tides of the year. We're witnessing one of the most extreme tides of the year. They are naturally occurring events. They happen once or twice every winter. And it's when the sun, moon, and the earth are in complete alignment, causing these extreme gravitational pulls, giving us these extreme high tides and extreme low tides. And California State Parks uses king tides as an opportunity to take a glimpse into the future and think about sea level rise and how sea level rise may impact California's coastline in the future. So what I'd like to do now is just turn the camera around so you can soak up the view and take a look at this incredible high tide that we are watching. All right. So here we have Crystal Cove Beach here at Crystal Cove State Park. You're seeing how the tide is coming all the way up here to these coastal bluffs. So there are a number of factors contributing to sea level rise as glaciers and ice sheets are melting. There's more water in the ocean, but also as the earth warms, the water is warming. So water molecules are actually expanding, contributing to that sea level rise. And we can see when king tides are coupled with these aggressive winter storms, we get coastal erosion, unpredictable hazards that are threatening our coastline and some of the cultural resources we have here. Jen, if you wouldn't mind sharing the low tide comparison shot, we have a picture taken here at the same spot, but at low tide, so you can see that dramatic difference between the high tide and the low tide. Walk all the way out down there. All right, Jen, thank you. If you want to go back to our live shot, keep in mind that coastal bluff out here. Ooh, got some birds. So the lands and waters that are now called Crystal Cove State Park are the ancestral homelands of the Ahashiman and Tongva tribal nations, who are still an active part of our community today. And the coastal bluffs here are significant cultural sites for the Ahashiman and Tongva tribal nations. And we see how the water is going up, crashing up against those rocks. Also, you might notice this cluster of cottages we have here. This is called the Historic District. And these cottages are historic. They were built in the 1920s, 30s. They've been painstakingly restored, historically refurnished, and they can be rented out like campsites through California State Park. So they're a very popular attraction here. It's showcasing a unique architecture, vernacular architecture, and it's the only lasting representation of early 20th century California coastal living. So we just have cultural resources along California's coastline we need to keep in mind as the sea level is rising. All right, we're very grateful today to have a guest with us. So I'm going to introduce our very special guest. Here we have Dr. Riley Pratt. Dr. Riley Pratt is our senior environmental scientist for Crystal Cove State Park and the other 5 state beaches that comprise Orange Coast District. Dr. Pratt, has sea level rise had any impact on the park or the beaches at Orange Coast District?
All right, thanks, Alex. Good morning, everyone. Well, I would say we've certainly seen a lot of concerning coastal erosion on our beaches in Orange Coast, especially in the last, I'd say, 7 or 8 years. Most of that is because of large wave events that we've had, coupled with king king tides or high tides. And but sea level rise is making those rare and extreme events worse. So obviously with rising water levels and those events happening together, that water can reach further inland and overrun parking lots like you saw in San Elijo, or other infrastructure that the public values. And so that's obviously a concern. I think it's important to keep in mind that we've only had about 8 or 9 inches of sea level rise over the last 150 years, since we've been burning a lot of fossil fuels. But in the next 100 years, it's expected to rise anywhere between 3 and 6 feet, maybe 7 feet. So you can just imagine what that added 6 feet potentially could do to our coastline and what our parks would look like. So we really need to be thinking long term about how to adapt to that challenge. And to mitigate those worst scenarios, we really need to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions, so we don't have quite the burden to bear.
Awesome, thank you very much. What is State Parks doing in response to sea level rise, or to mitigate the issues that we're seeing with coastal erosion here in Orange Coast?
Yeah, I'll say a few things on that. First, at the statewide level, we now have a sea level rise adaptation strategy, so that can serve as a guidepost for park managers who are needing to adapt to this challenge. It's something we can go to. We now have a small but mighty coastal program in Sacramento that are developing tools for districts to use to plan for sea level rise, and are sort of a group to bounce ideas off of. They're true experts in this area, so grateful to have them. I'd say at the local level here at Orange Coast, we're starting to plan a lot. So we're writing what we call vulnerability assessments. Basically, that means we're looking at what's at risk on our coastline from sea level rise and storm damage, and how do we address that risk? Do we move parking lots? Do we protect them in place? What do we do? And then I would say we're also acting. So just in the last year at Orange Coast, we've done 2 sand nourishment projects. So that's where we bring sand from somewhere else that isn't, where it's not desired, like in a flood control basin, and we're placing it in areas that have lost a lot of sand. And that can buy us some time and bring back a resource that's been lost, like a nice beach for the public to enjoy. But for that to work long term, we're going to have to do a lot more of that and more regularly.
Thank you, Dr. Pratt. Thank you for all the thoughtful work that you're doing to especially keep these California state parks and beaches open and access to the public. Thank you guys so much for visiting Crystal Cove State Park. Let's float on up the coast and check out another king tide.
Thank you so much, Alex and Dr. Pratt. Great hearing from you, from your park, and what kind of resources are being impacted there and what makes your park special. We're going to keep floating up. We're actually headed up to Santa Barbara, up to Carpinteria State Beach. So we're going to talk to Christina up at Carpinteria State Beach next.
Hi, Chrissy. Hi, everyone. Hi, everyone. My name is Christina, and I am broadcasting to you live from Carpinteria State Beach. I'm actually standing at the lifeguard headquarters. You can't see the building, but you will see the building and some photographs in a moment. The purpose of this building is so that lifeguards can help keep our visitors safe when they're exploring the shore and when they're out swimming in the ocean. High tides and high waves, like you're seeing behind me, are putting this building at risk. So let's go ahead and look at some comparative photos. I am going to show you some photos of this building from the 1990s versus photos that were taken in 2024. So let's go ahead and look at those photos here. All right, so this photo was taken in the 1990s, and this is actually the back of our building. And I want you guys to notice what you see on the ground there. a lot of sand, right? Yeah, we have a lot of sand there in the 1990s. Now let's take a look at what this building looks like today in 2024. And take a look at that sand. What do you see? Do you see more sand or less sand? Less sand, right? Yeah, let's take a look from a different angle. So again, this is the building in the 1990s. You could see a lot of sand, a lot of rocks and cobbles there. And then this is a photo just recently in the last 3 weeks. So I don't know about you, my friends, but I did notice that there is more sand missing. And like I'm saying, these high waves and high tides are putting our building at risk. If all of that sand goes away, what do you think will happen to this building? Do you think it's still going to be standing here? Probably not, right? And what about our coast here? What about our shore here? Will people be able to walk on our beach if there is no sand here? They might have to go to another beach. And then let's think about the wildlife. We have lots of wildlife that calls Carpinteria State Beach their home. We have shorebirds, we have brown pelicans, seabirds, such as brown pelicans. We have our harbor seal rookery, where right now, mama harbor seals are giving birth to pups, to baby harbor seals. Where are they gonna go if there's no sand on the beach? So these are all things that we need to think about when we think about these high waves, high tides that are affecting our coast, that are taking the sand away. So there's a couple of things that we're doing as a state park that we're thinking about doing. The first thing that we're thinking about doing is adding more sand to the beach and creating what we call a living shore. And that's just like creating sand dunes on the beach to just help protect our coast. And then the second thing that we're thinking about doing, especially when it comes to this building, is adding what we call riprap, which one of the interpreters mentioned earlier are large rocks, large boulders, and you can kind of see some of them right there. It kind of got pushed away. And that riprap would surround our building and we'd help protect the sand from getting pushed out back into the ocean. So I want to thank you all so very much for joining me here at Carpinteria State Beach, and we'll head up the coast to Refugio.
Thank you, Christina. Thanks for joining us and showing us your park. Yeah, I think it's so important for people to see that there's so many resources being affected, and we're not getting that sand back on our beaches like we used to. We used to get these south swells in the summer that would bring sand and kind of replenish our coastline, but since our climate is changing, and our atmosphere is changing, that's also changing the currents in the ocean and the weather and climate patterns. So we're not getting that sand getting pushed back on our beaches. So thanks for pointing that out and joining us. We're headed up the coast. We're still floating up the coast to Refugio State Beach. And we are going to talk to Jennifer. Hi, Jennifer.
Great, thanks, Chrissy. Thank you. My name is Jennifer, and I work here at Refugio State Beach. And I'm standing out here amidst the palm trees, and it's a beautiful sunny day, a little bit windy. We are located about 20 miles west of Santa Barbara, or about a 2-hour drive north on the 101 freeway from Los Angeles, if you ever want to come and visit us out here. And so for our King Tide event, you can really see how high the water is out here today. It's coming all the way up to the cliff edge here. And you might notice our palm trees here, some of them are starting to fall in the water, unfortunately, because of all the erosion and the king tides and the strong storms that we've had. They've been along the edge of the water for quite some time, but with these recent storms, we've lost about probably more than a dozen of them in the last 2 years to the storms. So you can see the water splashing up. And so if you were to go down from this cliff edge, it's about 7 or 8 feet down. So that's about how much sand we've lost. The sand used to be level with the ledge here. So we've lost quite a bit of sand, and you can see some of the palm trees on the cliff over here have fallen off of the hill as well. So these are Canary Island palms. They're not native to California. The previous landowner that used to own this property, Stephen Rutherford and the Rutherford family, planted these palm trees because he wanted to create a tropical oasis here in Southern California for people to go camping and enjoy the beach. So these palm trees were planted in the 1920s. So they're about 100 years old, which is really amazing beach. And it's a little sad to see them go, but because they're not native to California, where they don't plan on replacing them, unfortunately. So here, Jen's brought up a historical picture of what the beach looked like in the 1920s. This is Stephen Rutherford, and you can see how much sand is on the beach. And you'll notice no palm trees. So this must have been before they planted the palm trees, and you can see a couple people down there on the beach. All right, and then you can see the historical Surfers Point there out in the distance. And here we've got another picture of the beach looking the other direction, and you can see if you look closely, the train going by in the background with the smoke coming off of it on the right-hand side. So the train tracks and the 101 freeway go right past our beach. All right, go ahead and go to the next photo. All right, and so this is one of the little huts or cabins that was built here for people to rent out. You could go camping for $1 a day, which is pretty amazing. And you can see the palm trees. So these are the baby palm trees when they were close to first being planted. So you can see how tiny they were compared to how big they are now. So it's pretty neat to see that. All right, and then our last picture here. So you can see this is an aerial shot a little bit later. You can see the palm trees are much taller along the beach there. And then that yellow arrow that you see is where I'm standing right now. And you can also see off of Surfers Point here, the kelp forest. You can see how much kelp was out there back then. This is, I don't know, this one might be from the 1970s or so. It's a little bit hard to tell. But lots of kelp forest, and we still do have a kelp forest out there off of the point. But our big storms that we have really affect the kelp. In the winter, the storms can rip the kelp out and reduce the amount of kelp forest out there, but it grows back quickly in the summertime. And I also wanted to pan the camera over so you can see what our parking lot, the day use parking lot. So there you can see our row of palm trees. And you can see when the tide is really high, it pushes a lot of debris and driftwood into our day use parking lot over here. So right now it's kind of a mess. And they're in the middle of cleaning it up. Also the rain will flood the campground. Refugio Creek is at the other end of the campground. And so this used to be a big estuary area where the creek flows out into the ocean. And so it naturally wants to flood in the wintertime.
Wow. Those are some really dramatic differences from what the beach used to look like and to now. I mean, there was so much more sand down there, you know, and it's really kind of showing us how nature is really going to take back, you know, that beach and the ocean's moving in, and you can really see that sea level rise is happening now and impacting your park. Thanks so much for sharing with us, Jennifer.
You're welcome.
And we're going to keep on floating up the coast. We're in the kelp forest now. We are floating on up to Morro Bay State Park, and we're going to talk to Derek. Hi, Derek. Happy King Tide.
Hi, good morning. Happy King Tide. Hey everybody, my name is Derek and I would like to welcome you to Morro Bay State Park. We've seen some beautiful state parks along the open beach ecosystems this morning, but Morro Bay State Park is a little bit different. Morro Bay State Park is located on an estuary habitat. So I'd like to show you guys a little bit of this unique estuary habitat, talk about what makes it special and what we're thinking about in terms of king tides and sea level rise. So here's a view of the estuary. Let me zoom my camera out a little bit so you can get a sense of what this place looks like. So the estuary is this really unique body of water that connects to the salt water from the Pacific Ocean, right near Morro Rock right there. There's an opening that goes to the Pacific Ocean. And that salt water is mixing with fresh water from the streams and creeks on land. And you can see that this estuary is protected by a barrier sandspit. You may notice this barrier sandspit out here. And I wonder if you look at the water in the estuary, you may notice something very different about it compared to the open ocean. So you may notice that there are no waves in here. So let's take a quick look at this map and you can see what I'm talking about. So we've got salt water coming in from the ocean, fresh water coming in from the creeks, and I am here on the edge of the water just below the Morro Bay Museum of Natural History, which you can see marked with a gold star on the map there. So estuaries are really unique habitats because of this mixture of fresh water and salt water, and they're fantastic places for wildlife, and they're also places that humans love to settle and develop. So historically, humans have built communities all along estuaries. And in fact, you can see right here, let me go back to the camera at Windy Cove here. You can see that not only do we have a state park here, but we have an important access point for people who might want to recreate in the water. You can see that there's a road running right along the edge of the water there. And look how high that water is today on our king tide, my friends. It's making it all the way up to the parking lot there. So you may be able to imagine what that parking lot could look like if we had 1 or 2 feet of sea level rise. And there's a golf course right across behind those cypress trees there. So we have a lot of human developed infrastructure right here on the edge of the estuary. However, I also want to talk about a natural resource that we have here. So I'm going to zoom in my camera and perhaps you can get a look at this plant that's growing right on the edge of the water right there, my friends. What's one interesting thing that you notice about that plant? Okay, let's take a close-up view of this. So here's a little video I took the other day at low tide, and you can see there's much more shoreline exposed. And this is a special and unique estuary plant called a woolly sea blight or suede plant. It only lives right on the edge of estuaries. In fact, this woolly sea blight species can only be found here in Morro Bay State Park. It doesn't grow anywhere else on Earth. It used to grow in the San Francisco estuary, but due to habitat loss, it no longer grows there. So this is the last place we can find it, my friends. And you can imagine, I'm sure, that much like that parking lot and the road and these human infrastructures that we've built along the edge of the estuary, this plant is going to see something quite different if we have a couple feet of sea level rise. So if we were to lose this little strip of habitat, this narrow strip of land where the sea blight grows on the edge of the estuary, how would that affect all of the animals that migrate through and visit our estuaries on the Pacific Flyway? And they depend on plants like this that are unique to this ecosystem. So these are some of the resources that make your California state parks special, my friends. So I challenge you to think about what are some of the ways that you can make small changes in your life that might add up to a big impact. We can all pitch in together and make small changes, especially in the ways that we use energy, in the ways that we think about native plants. And these things will add up, hopefully, to make a better future for everyone. So thanks for joining me here in Morro Bay.
Thank you, Derek. That was really cool to learn about the special habitat and the species you're trying to protect there in the park. I really hope we can protect that habitat. I hope that all of you can get out there and enjoy these state parks and see these special places that we have in our state. And Yeah, thank you for sharing with us. And you know, we really need to reduce those fossil fuels in our environment so we can lessen climate change and protect these habitats. All right, we are still floating up the coast. We are still on with our flippers. I'm doing the backstroke here all the way up to Point Lobos State Natural Reserve to talk to Ashley. And if you're just joining us, this is our King Tide Sportscast. We are talking all about the king tides today, how they're impacting our parks and what makes these parks special. So hi, Ashley at Point Lobos.
Hey, Chrissy, happy King Tides. And I happen to have my flippers with me right here so I can float along with you along the beautiful California coast and celebrate King Tides with these fellow parks and all of you tuning in this morning. So my name's Ashley. I'm at beautiful Point Lobos State Natural Reserve. The sun is shining today, and it's great to be out in the park after being closed for a majority of this past week because of those extreme storms that we had. And I'm here at Whalers Cove, right next to the boat ramp, which you can see right here. And we just passed peak high tide here. And if Jen, if you wouldn't mind pulling up the first photo, give you all a look at what this area looked like during low tide. And you can see all of those rocks, all of that green and brown algae that if you are a scuba diver or a kayaker trying to access the water from this ramp right here, it would be pretty slippery to walk on. And you could go ahead and pull that photo down. And let me give you all a look at this cove that I'm right next to. It is, you can see there is a road right here. And we got some of those large rocks right along the road here. And then I'm not sure if you can see, but right there we have a seal that's making an appearance, and we actually have another one as well, just hiding behind that sign that I just passed. And this boat ramp, as we continue rotating the camera around here, just on the other side of the ramp, you see that wave coming in right here, almost reaching the top of the ramp. And just on the other side is this parking lot. And there are also some picnic tables. You can see a couple of visitors walking along that trail. And this lot serves as an important access point to people wanting to scuba dive, to walk on our North Shore Trail. And there's some restrooms right behind. And right here is a boat shed. California State Parks lifeguards and Cal Fire store their rescue boats. And so when there's people that are in need out in the ocean, they can use this boat ramp as an access point. And so let's talk a little bit about those scuba divers. And if I flip my camera around one more time, and if we pull on our wetsuit, grab those flippers, we use this boat ramp to access the water. This sign right in front of me says divers enter or leave water at this point only. And once we're in the water and we start diving beneath the waves, we are immediately surrounded by a whole new underwater world, the kelp forest. And kelp is incredibly important not only for the animals that live there, they're also important to us humans. And kelp is used in a lot of different products. And if you brushed your teeth this morning, you used something that has kelp in it, your toothpaste. And if you like that sweet treat after dessert or after dinner and you eat some ice cream, there's also kelp in there. And under the right conditions, kelp can grow over 12 inches or 1 foot a day, making it one of the fastest growing algae on our planet. And it also serves as, it helps to protect our coastlines from big winter storm waves. And you might have noticed that as we were turning the camera around, that there are these cliffs right here, the edge of the cove. And you might be able to see those waves crashing against it. And as those waves come rolling in, that kelp helps to slow down the force of those waves, limiting the impact to those cliff sides. And those cliffs have remained relatively stable throughout the years. But if we continue to have extreme weather events and more wave action, those cliffs can start eroding and we might have to reroute those trails. And one last thing, Point Lobos is part of a state marine reserve, which is a marine protected area. We visited several other ones along the coast. So as a friendly reminder, if you come visit Point Lobos, make sure that whatever you find in the park, you leave here. And then with that, thank you for joining me here at Point Lobos, and I'll pass it back to you, Chrissy.
Thank you, Ashley, so much for telling us all about your park. I'm so glad we're protecting that kelp forest. It's so important to help us when the sea levels are rising and during these big storms and these big wave events. It really helps protect these places and these beaches and our coastline. And yeah, those marine protected areas, that's why it's so beautiful there. That's why we see those seals and all that life out there, is because we have these marine protected areas. So thanks so much for sharing that with us. We're going to keep on floating up the coast. We are headed up to a little bit up from where Ashley was today, a little bit north of Ashley, to Asilomar State Beach. And we're going to talk to Isabella. Hi, Isabella. Happy King Tides.
Hi, Chrissy. Happy King Tides, and thanks for having me. Hi, everyone. I am really excited to welcome you to Asilomar State Beach, located here in Pacific Grove, California. I'm Isabella, and I'm an interpreter here. I specifically talk about marine protected areas. We are next to another marine reserve like the one we just saw in Point Lobos here at Asilomar. And I'd love to flip my camera around. Let's take a look at what's going on in the park. We're looking around. What are you noticing about the park? You might notice there are some big waves coming in, crashing on the rocks. There's not a lot of beach left at the moment because we are at this extreme high tide. You might see there are a few people also on the beach. Here at Asilomar, one of the really popular activities to do is to go tide pooling. I'd love to share a picture of this beach when it is low tide. A picture I took last month during a sunset. And you can see, oh, wow, it's a big wave. But I'd love to see a picture of what this looks like when the tide is low and a lot of tide pools are revealed. Jen, if you could share the picture of the tide pools here at Asilomar, that would be awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. All right, if you take a look, this is the exact view last month. And you can see it's a really beautiful day out and all those rocky tide pools are exposed. So this is something that people love to do when they visit Asilomar. you're ever visiting the beach, you can check out the rocky tide pools that are below and see a lot of the ocean animals that call the tide pools home. Thank you, Jen. Here at Asilomar, we have seen how king tides, especially when they're coupled with big storms, surges, and storm events, really impact the park, the ways that we recreate and have fun and exercise here, and also some of the habitats and the natural spaces here. So you also might have noticed that I am standing on a trail. So this trail that is right in front of us is the Asilomar Coastal Trail. It stretches for about 1 mile along the ocean. And it's another really popular activity for people to walk on or jog on when they're visiting. But this coastal trail does get really damaged during these really high tide events. I would love to show another picture of some of the damage from last year when we had a big storm. Thank you. Waves were coming up all the way onto the sections of the trail and creating this gigantic hole in this section and other places along the trail. So we can see that the trail just got completely washed out when the waves were coming up so high. We also saw staircases getting eroded. And even if we take a look a little bit further past the trail, you might see that we are also next to a road. So in some of the storms, when the waves are coming up really, really high, we've actually seen waves come all the way up to like where that car is passing by, all the way onto the road. So one of our plans for this trail, as you can see right now, it is this section has a lot of gravel. But one of the ways that Asilomar plans to adapt to sea level rise is actually by converting a lot of these gravelly sections of the trail into boardwalk, like we can see on the other side. So if we take a look at this boardwalk, you might be able to imagine waves from the ocean would be able to pass under the boardwalk instead of just going directly to the trail and damaging it. The boardwalk and the trail also provide sustainable access to the sand dunes. So we also have a really important habitat here at Asilomar, which are the sand dunes. These are a special part of the park as well because they are the last remaining 25 acres of what used to be 480 acres of sand dunes along the coast here. California State Parks started a project in the 1980s to start restoring these sand dunes back to what they originally looked like, because in the past couple hundred years, people had been building stuff on them, playing sports on them, picnicking, a lot of fun recreation, but unfortunately it was starting to really damage the sand dunes. So you can see we are surrounded by them right now. We can see a lot of these native plants. So these sand dunes do provide a habitat to a lot of different plant species, including the endangered Menzies wallflower, which is, it's really beautiful, cheerful, endangered wildflower that we see blooming a lot during the springtime. And the sand dunes are also home for a lot of animals, including the black legless lizard, which is another endangered animal that we see here at Asilomar. Earlier, while we were starting our program, some deer showed up. We also see bunnies and lizards and lots of birds on the sand dunes. Thank you, Jen. Not only are they a habitat for plants and animals, but these sand dunes also really help humans. They will actually buffer waves. So when huge waves are coming up, they provide like a natural barrier to make those waves smaller. And they will also prevent coastal flooding by trapping the water along the beach instead of letting it go all the way to the road. So having this habitat is really important, not only for the plants and animals, but for us humans. And protecting it is one of the ways that we can help against some of the effects of sea level rise and king tides when we're visiting. So thank you all for joining me here at Asilomar, and I'll pass it back to you, Chrissy.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Isabella. And it was really cool to hear all about the sand dunes and those species that you're trying to protect there. And so important to remember to stay on the trails and not step off those trails into the sand dunes, because we have those beautiful flowers and the the lizards and animals that are living there as well. So thanks for sharing that with us. All right, we're headed up to Northern California now. We are almost up, almost to the top of California. We are in Northern California. We're still floating up, and we're going to be talking to Esme at Mendocino Headland State Park. Hi, Esme. Wow, it's a beautiful day up there.
Hi, everybody.
Look at the color of that water. Thanks for joining.
So I'm Esme. I'm a park interpreter here with California State Parks. And here at Mendocino Headland State Park, there's two popular beaches that are very important for all of our natural and cultural resources. And right behind me here, there's one beach that we could see how the king tides have damaged our park here. And there's another popular beach too that I want to show you today. And this beach here is locally known as Portuguese Beach. And this is a popular spot to go swimming and to just go walk, and on a low tide to go see the tide pools. And here in this picture, you can see what the low tide looks like versus the high tide. And right behind me, you can see that the king tides are washing in and out right on the coastline and causing erosion. And this beach is only accessible through one staircase, which I want to show you where that is. It's right up there. Up over there's a staircase, and it's currently not accessible. And last month, during the first round of king tides, we were able to see that the staircase got eroded, and the king tides were washing in and out, and it caused a lot of erosion here. And I want to show you where the other popular beach spot is. And it's right over there. There's Big River Bridge. If you look very closely, Big River Beach is also a popular beach spot. And this beach also got affected by the king tides because the main parking lot is closed right now. So it's not currently safely accessible because of the king tides. So that's another beach that got affected. And I saw some seals swimming up in here in the water. And this is what all the redwood logs look like right on the beach that got washed in, which we can't see from this side of the bluffs right now. But here I am in comparison to the redwoods. And there's a lot of redwoods that are being washed in and out constantly. Now, some people have asked me, where are these redwoods from? Well, long story short, the redwoods that we see here could be from anywhere in the Mendocino forest to the Santa Cruz area or the Humboldt County area, because back in the early 1900s, logging was taking place all over the redwood forest. And here, this picture from 1995 shows a lot of redwoods all over the beach. And this photo is Big River Beach, where there was a mill site. And this mill site is the place where a lot of redwoods were cut and prepared to be sold and shipped to a whole lot of other places. And here is another picture of the mill site from the 1920s to 1940s, where you could see what the bridge looks like in the past. And I want you to think about this question. If the mill site was still here, do you think that we would be able to safely recreate or visit this beach or watch the king tides from the headlands or the beach? Because that now we have access, and the people of Mendocino fought to protect this beach for everybody to enjoy and for the wildlife to be protected. And thank you so much for visiting Mendocino Headland State Park with me today.
Thank you, Esme. What a beautiful park you're working at. And wow, the color of that water is just amazing. And I can't believe all those redwood logs come from all over and end up on your beach there. Thank you so much for joining us, Esme, and showing us what the king tides, how they're affecting your beach today. We're gonna visit one last park in Northern California. I'm so excited to have Kat at McCarraker State Park with us today. And I see the Harbor Seal Rookery behind you, Kat. I can't wait to hear about it.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Hi, everyone. My name is Kat, and today I am joining you from McCarraker State Park, beautiful California State Park in Mendocino County. We're actually looking over another marine protected area that I know we have talked about so much already today. In this place, there are special protections for this underwater wilderness, and one of the animals that benefits from those special protections is my favorite animal, the harbor seal. Today, I am actually standing in front of a harbor seal rookery. This is a place that these animals like to rest. They warm up in the sun, and in fact, this is such a special place that harbor seals will have their pups or give birth here. Now, harbor seals are mammals just like us, and that means that they need to work extremely hard to survive these extreme ocean conditions like the king tides and in the future, like sea level rise. Now, let's go ahead, let's take a second to watch what's happening in this harbor seal rookery. All of these rocks where harbor seals like to rest. I am seeing a lot of waves coming up and over. I know if I was a harbor seal right now, I don't think I would want to go rest out there. Now, it doesn't always look like this, so let's take a look at what this rookery looks like during a regular low or mid tide here along the coast. There we go. We can see that there's many more rocks that are exposed, but it is a little tough to see where the harbor seals are. Can we get a slightly closer look at this rookery? There we are. If we look really, really closely in this picture, those funny looking lumps on the rocks, those are our wonderful harbor seals. You know, let's get one more even closer look so we know exactly what kind of animal we're talking about today. Oh, there they are. The beautiful, the blubbery, the ever adorable harbor seal. During king tide events, we can go ahead and pull that picture down. Thank you so much, Jen. During king tide events, these animals are needing to work extremely hard to survive. They have to use their adaptations, those tools built into their body. They need to dive under the waves, hold their breath. And a lot of times, these animals need to haul out or come up farther on the beach, out of the water to escape these crashing waves. It means that a lot of times these animals might end up close to places where us humans like to go. Places like coastal trails or dry sand. King tides are tough on all of our coastal animals because they're working extra hard to survive. One of the best things that we can do to help all coastal animals is to give them space and to let them be. They're working very hard to survive right now, and we certainly don't want to make their lives any more difficult by scaring them back into this kind of water. So if you make it to the coast over the next couple of days, please do remember to keep yourself safe by watching this amazing ocean phenomena happen from a distance, but also go ahead and give our coastal animals some space, even though they might be a little closer to where us humans like to go. So thank you so much, Chrissy.
Thank you, Kat. Oh, it's so great to see that harbor seal rookery and oh, they're so cute, those harbor seals. And I'm gonna make sure that I let them be and I wave from a distance at them and let them rest when they're on the beach because they really need to save that energy up because I bet it feels like a roller coaster out there right now with those king tides happening for them. They're just floating out there. All right, thanks, Kat, for joining us. And it was so great to hear from everybody at your state parks and see it and hear about what makes your park special and how those king tides are really impacting our coastline. It's getting a little cloudy here. It's getting a little stormier, but we have one more special segment for you. Last month, I was able to talk to some Scripps Institution of Oceanography researchers and scientists about the changes along the beach and what they're studying. And they're using some really cool tools and technology to do these studies along our beach. So we have a special scientist spotlight video to show you. It's a couple minutes long, and let's check it out and learn all about what the Scripps oceanographers are doing.
The Scripps Institution of Oceanography, scientists are studying the beaches. They're helping us to track and prepare for impacts from sea level rise.
How do scientists study the beach?
The Scripps scientists are looking at flooding along our coastline, where the sand goes, and how the cliffs are changing, which is called erosion.
What kind of tools do they use?
The scientists use all kinds of really cool tools and technology, like drones, trucks, jet skis, dollies, and ATVs. They use these tools to map the beaches and track the changes along the coast.
I love technology. How does it work?
The scientists monitor the beach and coastal cliff erosion with LiDAR.
LiDAR? What's that?
LiDAR is light detection and ranging. LiDAR is a light in the form of a pulsed laser which generates precise three-dimensional maps on the surface of the Earth, including the seafloor.
Let's hear more about it from the scientists on the beach.
Okay, so this is our LiDAR truck, and what we use this for is we drive along the beaches and we look at the cliffs and the sand. So what we look at specifically is we measure erosion of the cliff and of the sands. So this right here is called a LiDAR, and in a moment you're going to see it spin around, and what we're doing is we are making a map of what the beach looks like. A really detailed map down to little centimeters. And what that does is it allows us to, over time, over weeks and over months and over years, we can look at the kind of changes that we're seeing.
What about the drones?
The drone captures high-quality photos the whole time it's flying. Each photo is put together to make a 3D map. Each pixel in that 3D map has a GPS coordinate associated with it. They fly the drone every month so they can track how the beach is changing over time. They can track where the sand is moving or where the cobblestones move along the beach.
All right. Wow, that was really inspiring to hear what the scientists are doing out there on our beaches. Do you want to learn how you can be a community scientist and you can help us? Well, you can participate in community science. These King Tide events help us understand what actions we may need to take in our communities to prepare for the effects of sea level rise. There's king tide community science projects happening throughout the world and in many of our states. And community scientists like you can get out and take photos when we are expecting high tide events. You can snap the shore and see the future. Upload these photos to the California Coastal Commission King Tides Project website. But the most important thing, if you get out there to visit these king tides this weekend, the most important thing to remember is to be safe. Always be extra careful when you walk around slippery areas near big waves. Never turn your back on the ocean because you don't want a big wave to knock you down. So always keep your eye on the ocean, scanning the water. And remember what we learned earlier about those coastal cliffs are eroding. We want to keep a safe distance between you and the cliff. And if you get out there to see the tide pools during king tide, because there's some really extreme low tides happening right now too. And it's a great time to go out and see the tide pools and all the animals that live out there that we wouldn't normally see because it's covered up by the water. If you visit during low tide and you go to the tide pools, remember to respect the tide pools. We never want to remove any animals from the tide pools. All the animals there are protected, and we want to be careful about where we step and just be really respectful with those tide pools. Okay, I hope you're able to get out there and enjoy the king tides. Remember, we have the King Tides project going on. You can participate in that and be a scientist. We have free educator resources on the Coastal Commission website. You can scan the QR codes. Or on the California State Parks Ports Program website, we also have educator resources. So teachers and parents out there, you can scan those QR codes and get some of those resources. And let's get all of our presenters back on the screen one more time for one last wave. Thank you, everyone. It was so great to hear about your parks that you're working at and protecting. And happy King Tides, everyone. Have a great day. Bye.